Azure Storage provides a wide range of storage types that are available to you. We've talked about lightly structured data, unstructured data, and highly structured data in other recordings. When we take a look at that unstructured data, we saw that the modern method to store that information was blobs or binary large objects. But what do you do with all your legacy stuff? If you've got current file share servers that you have, different repositories, that older method of storing files, and we'll take a look what that method is still going to be required for you to be able to make available for your information. That's where Azure Files come in. My name is Bob Tickleman. I'm excited to be your guide for this module on Azure Files within Azure Storage. As a backwards compatible capability, Azure Storage allows for a specific type of unstructured data storage that is slightly different than blob storage. It is still part of the standard storage account that a blob storage might be part of, so they will share the region that the storage account was created in, and they'll share the replication model that was available to the storage account, because that's a storage account level. Within that storage account level, there was 4 types of storage. The 2 that were unstructured data was blob storage and now file shares. This is now going to give you legacy access using what's called SMB, or the server message block protocol, and that traditional file structure of folders that you were working with. So let's take a look at what file shares are, how they differ from the blob storage, where you might use them, and why you might use them. I've said this in other recordings that if you see charts that compare one feature versus another, and this one is down the left-hand side, we're comparing Azure Files to Azure Blob Storage. You might get questions that says, hey, you're looking to do this type of storage scenario, which one of these you would use? And it would typically come from these kind of scenarios. So from my eye-winking moments, you may want to remember this. But Azure File Shares are there basically for that backwards compatibility. If you're currently using maybe a NetApp, or you're using some kind of network share that users are connecting to, maybe for home drives, maybe you've got branch caching services that you're working with, you can now use file shares as a way to replicate that information. It provides for mounting of drives as opposed to just accessing it through that URL or the URI that we've talked about to actually access the storage. It's accessed using what's called an SMB, the server message block, and a thing called a UNC, where you've seen that format of // maybe some server name, / and then some share name. And then that will map something possibly like, say, to a G drive. So you can now mount this. Now, this is also going to come up in another module that we'll be covering when we take a look at the different types of compute. When you look at containers and how they're used for application deployments these days, many of them support and only support file share storage. And so not just for legacy backwards compatibility for your unstructured data, if you are a container organization deploying your applications, this also will be a great use for you to provide that way to provide durable data storage to your container environments that you're working with. The file shares, as I mentioned, is following that SMB protocol to access it as opposed to HTTP or HTTPS, and it provides that UNC capability. Once you create the file share, there's a connect button that will give you the 3 different ways to map a connection to that file share, and that goes back in that format that I was showing you, that it will give you the text that will allow you to say what's called netuse is the command, and it gives you the server name. My handwriting is my own form of encryption, and then the share name, and then maps it to some drive letter. Now, in the past, we used to have to write these commands out. What this graphical interface is going to provide for you, you just pick from the drop-down list, and it will actually then show you the script that you're going to do. And it's actually quite extensive. It's many lines long, but it actually does a test to make sure that the right ports are going to be open. So you need to know that port 445, we're using SMB as the protocols, but it can be mapped to any one of these main operating systems as a way to get that access to that storage. We also provide for, if you remember in the blob storage recording, there was a part where we talked about being able to have a soft delete capability. We also provide for snapshots of point in times, references to a document. Now again, this is not in replacement of a regular backup. You want to be able to still have a point in time authoritative restore back to a known good point. These snapshots, there's, I believe at the time of the recording, you can have up to 200 iterations of a document or some unstructured data that if you take a snapshot of it at that moment in time, you could potentially go back to that moment in time. So maybe someone's come in and deleted some paragraphs. It's not going to recover the entire document. You can go back to an instance of that document before maybe that change took place if a snapshot exists. Getting into that soft delete feature that I was just talking about, in addition to the snapshotting, we do have that soft delete capability for you to be able to restore information if it gets deleted either intentionally, maliciously, or accidentally. You're going to be able to go back to the soft delete by using the default values, which I believe are 7 days. You can change those. They were the ones that we showed you from the blob storage. You have that soft delete capability to recover that information. And again, I want to stress, this does not replace the need to be able to provide regular backups in known good states to regular points in time that you could now have as authoritative points that you could recover to. We have a tool called Azure Storage Explorer that, as a graphical tool, you can download it from the Microsoft Store, put it on your phone, you can put it on your Windows desktop. And what the Explorer will do is provide you a graphical interface that allows you to add multiple accounts. And within those accounts, you could then, so you can see I've got an account here, you can have different storage accounts that you can put in there. So you have multiple accounts of storage on your user account, and you can drill down and work with these files on a graphical interface. What it also allows you to do is, built into the graphical interface, the Storage Explorer has been built into the Azure portal itself. So it's a great way to now have on your desktop or on your mobile device, you can have access to all of this information in a fairly easy to use and navigate graphical environment. So we've introduced, in addition to blob storage, another type of unstructured data storage that provides backwards compatibility from map drives requirements, as well as the forward-looking capabilities to provide mapping to your container environments for file shares. File shares are still an important part of organizational data structures, and I hopefully that this module has provided you the understanding of how you can use it within your environment to provide storage requirements in Azure. Thanks for joining us for this session. To continue your learning, watch other videos in the course or explore more on Microsoft Learn at aka.ms/learn.